Well, both of them are accelerators. So the African Investment Forum, being organized by the African Development Bank, is actually an accelerator platform to ensure that projects are accelerated through the capital raising process. So the idea is that rather than take several months for investors to be able to raise funds for their projects, they're able to meet several investors, several multilateral development institutions, and several other project sponsors in one location. But it's not just an investment fair. The idea is that once these investors are in one location with multilateral partners, with several international financial institutions, with several other project sponsors and investors, they are able to quickly refine the business plan. They're able to deal with all the possible credits and risk issues right there on one spot. And then the process is able to be rapidly evaluated and move faster to closure, to finance closure. So that is exactly the idea of the African Investment Forum. And that is very, very similar to the AfDB Focus Labs that had that same process of removing inhibitions to business investment. So both forums, quite frankly, have largely the same objectives.
Accelerating, quick, faster, those are the trigger words
Absolutely.
for me. When you consider the agenda laid by the AfDB as far as the Africa Investment Forum goes, it talks about advancing projects that are bankable, raising capital, accelerating financial closure. You've tied this in also to the Nigerian president's economic recovery and growth plan. From the private sector perspective, how achievable is this really?
Okay, again, it's important to start by mentioning
with emphasis on speeding things up now, because this is a conversation that's been going on for long. So what have the drawbacks been for private investors?
Okay, first, I will start by re-emphasizing what the priorities on behalf of the African Development Bank are, the high fives. And those very, very closely align to the priorities of the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan. So the priorities are quite frankly in alignment. Now, the idea of accelerating projects, we need to keep this in mind within the context that most of these infrastructure projects are multi-year projects. So many of them take a minimum of 2 years, some of them take up to 5 years. So even though a lot of acceleration is being done, you may not see the visible impact in 6 months, because these are projects, for instance, in power, in rail, sometimes in building large agricultural facilities. So there's a lot of progress being made in the background, but again, it may take another year for you to see the visible impact. But the reality is that, at least from the outcomes of the AfDB Focus Lab, there have been quite a number of successes, and I believe that that will be the same with the African Investment Forum.
Now, one of the core areas of conversation as far as the Africa Investment Forum goes is focusing on bridging infrastructure gaps, tying that to the SDG needs of Africa, which, by the way, it says financing Africa's SDG needs an estimated 600 to 700 billion US dollars per annum. And out of that, 130 to 170 billion dollars will be needed for infrastructure development. You mediate between the government and the private sector, being a key member of the Nigerian presidency's ERGP. Where will the money come from? What will you be telling, or what do you expect that the AfDB will be telling private sector investors that they have not heard before?
Well,
that will make them begin to facilitate deals and sign MOUs within 2 days, which is what essentially this will cover in November.
Well, I think it's important, again, to mention that there's going to be a lot of work before the African Investment Forum in November. So even though the actual African Investment Forum in Joburg will probably be just for 2 to 3 days, the reality is there's a lot of work that will have been done before November